out. AMRP is a letting agent. We deal with this in an outsourced manner. So we have a piece of software called Inventory Based that is specialist software. Absolutely, Nicola. I've just seen your comment there. Yes, absolutely. I'll ping that to your email. Not a problem. So inspections, yes, we use Inventory Based, which is a specialist piece of software for inspections, and we outsource to a company. We pay them a per inspection fee, and their staff are basically trained in things like housing health and safety rating system and the decent home standards, and they will make an appointment with our tenants. They will go out and do the inspection, and the inspection is actually recorded in the piece of software. It normally has 50 or so photos, and then it has videos of each room, and they log any sort of action points that need to be taken. That's how we deal with this. But I raise it in terms of private landlords, because again, it's something we see landlords come to us and they've maybe not been in that property for numerous and many years, and that obviously brings a lot of risks because you don't necessarily know what that tenant's been up to or how they're keeping the property. Or, for example, as I've just mentioned here, do they have working smoke and carbon monoxide alarms? If there hasn't been an inspection for a period of time, it would be very difficult to demonstrate that, you know, that those appliances are there and that they're working. So our inspections officer have to physically video, as part of the report, the checking and alarm sounding of each smoke and carbon monoxide alarm. And we do that, frankly, because if we end up in court, that is proof at that time that those precautions were in the property and were working. And that's why we do it. Another thing we would look at for inspection, ironically, is who is occupying the property. And this goes back to right to rent. So not only do we have this obligation to check right to rent at the beginning of the tenancy, but for example, if we'd let a property to a single female and then we inspect a property and there are clause of males or multiple males or children, it flags up that right to rent issue. So that would alert us to start to think, actually, we need to check who is occupying the property and do they have the right to rent. And we've actually had this at AMRP. So we had a single male who had then, in effect, moved in. His partner had moved from outside the UK and was occupying the property that was rented from us. Now, what we actually had to do in this case, having requested right to rent documents from the female on numerous occasions, they failed to provide them. And what we actually had to do was make a report to the Home Office. That made us compliant. That was the ultimate thing we had to do. And that ironically became known to us because of an inspection. Because our inspections guy went expecting one male occupant, and there was a couple. So it triggered our right to rent sort of check. So that's another thing. The inspection isn't entirely just about, you know, are they looking after the property? Is there any repairs? Those absolutely become apparent in inspections. But the legislation sort of loops together so much now that there are other things that we need to be looking out for when we carry out an inspection. And if nothing else, as landlord of a property, we all want to know how it's being looked after. If it needs some investment, you know, if the tenant is even a good tenant, you know, can we help them with some improvements? So there are a multitude of reasons why inspections are a good idea, but there are some real must reasons around, as I say, smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, check for occupiers, are things that we should all be sort of mindful to look out for. And then again, just linking in the selective license scheme. I'll talk a lot about Durham because we operate a lot in Durham, and Durham's licensing scheme is massive. But again, we have recently dealt with Durham County Council. They wanted to look at some of our licenses. We have around 200 licenses, and one of the questions they were asking is, so they sent us a sample of addresses, they asked for various things, right to rent was one of them, but they also said, when was your last inspection? Please send us the report, because ironically, that is a licensing requirement. So if we couldn't demonstrate that we'd inspected that property every 6 months, we would have breached our selective license. Breach of a selective license is up to a £30,000 fine. I think it's unlikely they would fine a landlord to that extent, you know, because of lack of inspections. But again, this is just where the legislation is all sort of wrapping around each other and the requirements all spider web into each other. But normally somewhere there is a route for you to be fined, punished, or for someone to take you to court if you breach it. So it all just merges in with each other, and it is genuinely a minefield. So this is why I hope these sessions are useful for landlords. As you can imagine, I'm lucky with Neil, our lettings manager, Karen, tenancy manager, and then admin support, and then we have outsourced inspection officers. So loads of capacity and resource in the AMRP to focus on as full-time jobs getting this right. So I can imagine if you're a private landlord trying to sort of keep abreast of this and comply with it all under your own steam, it's frankly a real minefield. So I really hope these are helpful and not too scary, but I can understand they may be, frankly.